Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to our viewers. Good evening to our panelists. And let me say a special greeting, share a special greeting that is to our viewers at home and all across the various countries where Guyanese are residing. It is almost Christmas in Guyana. It's election time. It's the time when everything happens in this beautiful country of ours. Things that doesn't even happen during Christmas and Holy and Easter and all of that. Friends, let us first give some credit and thanks to Globespan, to Nohar Singh, Kumar, Devin, and our sponsors, of course. And we encourage all of you to join in one way or another to make this platform's success continue. Ladies and gentlemen, we have noted before on this platform that across the world, manifestos are used to pinpoint political strategies in an aim to win elections and stimulate dialogue. In many cases, manifestos, whether serious, satirical, or not, manifestos are used to score political points leading up to an election. And in many, many cases, Guyana included, they are quickly forgotten after the elections. In Guyana, we have the release of the APNU AFC Manifesto, which of the larger parties is the first to be released. Now we need to remember that only in 2018, I believe it was, yes, 2018, that manifestos really started to play an important part in our history. That is, it played a great part in the no confidence motion, which was based on the opposition leader calling on the House, on the National Assembly to vote their conscience based on failed promises contained in the government's manifesto. Now, one would also note, and we have tonight Professor Charles Sugrim here, one would also know that nowhere in the world is manifesto deemed to be a document that can hold the government legally obligated to perform to anything stated therein. However, it is a promise, and it is a promise that has been put on paper. What really happens here is that the contents of manifestos must therefore be assessed, analyzed, so that we can hold the political parties accountable in a more serious way. And how do we hold them accountable? Elections. This is the cycle through which we are putting confidence or no confidence in a government. Today, we have three gentlemen on our panel. We have, firstly, two esteemed colleagues, backers of the APNU AFC slate, Mr. Cleveland Ripoll and Mr. Brian Collison. Both gentlemen have been vocal in their advocacy for the re-election of the APNU AFC slate and re-election of David Granger. And Mr. Collison, with his finance/economic background, has maintained that the coalition slate is best for Guyana from an economic and financial perspective. We also have Professor Charles Sugrim, who has been vocal. He has remained independent, but he believes that the two large parties need to make way for young, fresh blood in the political landscape of Guyana. Gentlemen, welcome to tonight's discussion on the APNU AFC Manifesto. Let me say, first of all, let me ask Cleveland for his opening comments, and then I'll move to Brian and then you, Charles. Gentlemen, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
thank
much.
you.
Well, first of all, I say congratulations to my two friends to my right here, especially Charles, whom I just seen now hours ago. Let's say a day ago. and Brian, well, I've been in contact with Brian. In regards to manifesto, I had an opportunity to take a quick look at it. I think it's, like you correctly said, it's a document that promises a plan of action or a plan for development. When I briefly reviewed this document, I noticed that it's a projection with a lot of hope for inclusion of the Guyanese people. And there are a number of sectors, or let's say sections in the document that address various aspects of development, including business, democratic process, integration and inclusion, inclusion of the youth. It also has renewable energy, security. I was looking at these various things. So, and on the business and investment side, including oil, what is going to be done with the oil money and all of that. So there's a projection for...
Wonderful.
Yes, a projection there that is made that Guyana is on the way...
You're happy with this paper? You're happy with what you have seen?
Well,
there?
from what I've seen, I'm saying it's a hopeful document. I mean, once these things...
Well, the four of us are going to put on some boxing gloves tonight.
Well, sure, we can go at it, yes. Yeah. There's going to be hope. Right. There's hope. And hopefully, I mean, all these things that are said, if the government acts in congruence with whatever the plan is, they will be able to deliver on those, projections. So that's my opening. Thank you.
Got you. Thank you. Thank you. Brian, your comments.
All right. So good night, everyone. Good night, audience, sponsors. Thanks for the invitation. Mr. Chairman, I was say like you, I would like to see Guyana do better with, all Guyanese, regardless of race or ethnicity or sexual orientation or whatever ism that person subscribes to, right? I believe that every Guyanese should be given a chance to grow to their utmost potential. And I've had a look at the document, and as you said, it's not a contract, it's just a guide, a document, a guide, the government on the direction in which they may go. And it's very hopeful, and I can actually put some concrete numbers to some of the plans, because in a financial analyst way, I could just in real time just give you some of the numbers and some of the implication of some of the plans that are there, right? So I think it's very hopeful, and if many of those plans and programs can be executed, the country will definitely be on the right path. And as you know, I'm a fervent supporter of the party at this juncture, because I think of all the parties, they have the best plans and programs for the country. And I share a concern also with corruption. I know, even though, I am a supporter of this government, because we had 23 years of the previous regime, corruption is almost cultural and endemic in the country. So we have to find a way of dealing with corruption. I have no
in the world, you
qualms
mean,
about
right?
Accountability.
Charles, just before I let you make your opening comments, it's good to have you again.
Yeah.
And I must say, ladies and gentlemen, I viewed Charles. I always call him, whenever I speak to him, I rarely call him Charles. I always say Professor.
So Charles is fine.
It's more of a term of endearment for me than anything else. Charles, your opening comments. It's the time for manifestos.
Yeah, it is. And I want to thank my esteemed friends. To start with, yesterday here in New York, we had a lovely 50th anniversary celebration of our republic. And I want to give kudos to the Consul General, Mrs. Attlee, and to the team who put it together. Cleveland has been one of them. And they did a marvelous job. I think it was really, really well attended. The cross-section of the Guyanese. I sat there and I listened to the Rasta drumming and to the spiritualist drumming. And then to the lectures from the Hindu, from the Bhagavad Gita, and from the, we had Pradeep Kumar talking about Islam, and we had a lovely young lady talk about Christianity. And it was really, really that camaraderie that we see in functions like these, but then when we get into, go back to our little our crooks and our cronies and our homes, and as Ivan said, yes, to our community, we kind of shelve those things that we just experienced. Having said that, I hope whoever wins the next election, that they keep Mrs. Attlee here in New York. She's done a fantastic job as Consul General, and I'm, going for her, and I hope that she stays on the job after the election.
I hope you don't become a lobbyist. You know, you have a persuasive way.
But she's doing a really good job, and I really like what she's doing. She need to reach out. She's reaching out to all the communities. As much today, they went to Schenectady for another program. And then on Sunday, there's something at Evers in Brooklyn. So she's doing so much within the community here, and it's really amazing. So
we should probably bring her. We should probably have her on the program sometime.
I'm sure you should. Yeah.
Yogi, if I can jump in right there, because sorry. I was saying what Charles is saying is absolutely correct, because what I want to focus on is I have the microphone off. Sorry. Yeah. What I want to just touch base a little on is yesterday, the program itself was so good, but I want to focus a little bit on the participation of the various racial groups apart, in addition to the religious sect that were up there. If you look at the population, the turnout, it's a reflection of who we are as Guyanese. And the participation, the culture, the integration, that aspect of it is what is lacking when it comes to politics.
Correct. So
culture is
so
good,
let's
politics, it needs to translate to that.
I agree. Let's come right down to the topic for today. We want to talk
about
if
you don't mind, Yog, sorry to cut in. But having said that, I just want to mention one thing, is that manifestos, as we talked about today, and we talked about the APNU manifesto, we can only measure two manifestos really, because for the past 53 years, we only had two governments. We had the PNC for 28 years, then we had a PP for 23 years, and then we have APNU AFC for 5 years. So in fairness to the other parties, it's difficult to say, okay, we can predict the future, as my friend rightly said, by looking at the past. And we can only look at the manifesto in its sincerity if what we promised before we did. And we need to put a check to that and say, okay, I promised this, did I deliver? If I don't deliver, the probability of me not delivering in the future is greater. So in that context, I want to ensure that we look at pros and cons and to see exactly what we said we will do and what we did.
Understood. And as we get on to the discussion on the manifesto, gentlemen, we need to be cognizant. I think one of the viewers mentioned it. We need to be cognizant of a couple of things. One is we have been shy in our assessment in looking at, as you rightly said, Charles, looking at 53 years. So when we're assessing, we are assessing that, okay, previously it was 23 years of a PPP-C government, and then it has been 5 years of the APNU AFC government. But previous to the 23 years of the PPP-C government would have been a PNC government. And the PNC remains a major partner of the coalition. So viewers are concerned that historically these things are there. Now, we can only assess the 2020 promises based on what would have been promised in 2015. And I have here the program for the first 100 days that was promised in 2015. One was reduction in the Berbice Bridge toll. Two was significant increase of government workers. Berbice Bridge toll did come down to, I think, around $1,900, a reduction of $300 or $400. Then the promise of a significant salary increase for government workers, including nurses, teachers, security personnel, civil servants. I don't think that was achieved. Then number three, and this is number 1 and 2, number 3 is phased reduction of VAT. Now, there was a reduction of VAT and removal of VAT from food and essential items. Number 4, significant increase on old age pensions. Now, Brian, I would want you to comment on this, because yes, old age pensions would have been increased, but the old age pensioners actually ended up paying more because electricity and so forth end up having a value-added tax to them. So you literally end up giving them something, but giving on one hand, taking away with the other. Then you have other things. I mean, number 5, reduction of the president's pension. All of a sudden, nothing is wrong with that. Number 7, television station to Linden, establishment of passport board certificate. I mean, there are a whole host of things here that one could say if we were to evaluate. There is one about Soco. There are a number of things that one would say if you couldn't deliver within 5 years, can you now deliver? And the last one I noticed that before I open for comments, and this is bridging 2015 to 2020, The last one is that in 2015, APNU AFC government promised what was called the good life. Maybe the silent phrase was the good life for some, because obviously all didn't get to experience that good life. But that good life continued to remain the manifesto promise in the 2020. Your views?
Brian.
Okay, first, you want me to, I can start with the old age pension. The old age pension, it wasn't achieved in the first iteration, but as you know, it wasn't achieved in the first 100 days. But as you know, there were like 2 other increases subsequent to the first one. So they have overachieved in terms of realizing the targets for the old age pension. Now, in terms of so many of the other wage increases that were promised, they weren't achieved in the first 100 days, but again, in that respect, there were a number of subsequent increases, and if you measure it in real terms between 2015 and now, it is substantial, you know, like 60, 70%, maybe across the board. So not in the first 100 days, but over the time span with which,
Cleveland, Cleveland, I want to take this to you. Now, Brian has a point, but Brian's point is what I would have expected from you, more of the political side, right? Because here is what. Undeniably, there has been inflation over the years. If one was to take account of inflation, one was to take account of the number of taxes that have been added to 100+ items, so that your spend money, your disposable income, net reduced. Cleveland.
Yeah, it's based on a number of factors. You may have a point in terms of like figure-wise, yes, but you want to fall back on the level of inflation and growth, or the value of the dollar. You could probably buy less. So maybe that's one of the issues involved, but not to say the money was not given.
Can I jump in? Let me jump in. It's more in my area.
That's your area, exactly, because you dealt with the.
In fact, I beg to differ somewhat, because around the world is the world across the globe. You know, it's been almost in a deflationary environment in almost every country in the world. Japan, even the U.S. No country in the world is really experiencing any significant inflation, probably with the exception of Zimbabwe or Venezuela. Those are the only 2 countries in the world where there is inflation. Most of the other countries in the world, it's either stable or very insignificant increases in prices.
Well,
and
I'm just comparing from
right,
2015 coming forward.
There hasn't really been much inflation. So
much, right.
Real wages in real terms.
But you know why, Brian?
Yeah.
Let me tell you one of the reasons why. Your economics and financial background may allow you to agree with me here. Now, here is why. The basis of dependency of our economy, the net exports, were literally decimated. Right? Now, what happened? Forget the political side of sugar. The fact that sugar would have stabilized foreign exchange. Now it is 220 for one. Look at rice. Look at small crops. Let's look at bauxite. So my point is that I'm not beating up this manifesto. Every party has to promise. And when we do an assessment of the PPP manifesto, we'll do the same. But my point is that you have to own up. Nobody is owning up to the reality of the situation. Net 2020, are we worse off than we were in 2015? If one is to take oil out from the picture, where are we today? We're bankrupt.
No, man. I'd say no. You gotta look at the numbers. Look at the GDP. Look at the numbers.
I would beg to differ in the sense that the wealth might have been generated, but where did it go?
Yeah.
That's one of the political issues.
We gotta look at
wealth
actual.
Is generated, gold, diamond, and all of that. I mean, a lot of that is being generated, but where did the money go?
Or the other thing. Let me jump into this.
Consolidated funds. Money has been.
We gotta look at actual numbers, right? And we got things like the Human Developmental Index. We gotta jump by 3 or 4 points in over the last few years, and we gotta look at numbers. When you look at the numbers, it doesn't. agree or accord with what you're saying, because in terms of education, there have been tremendous growth in education in hinterland areas compared to where we were in 2015. I can give you an example. In fact, I can give praise to Mr. Van West Charles, son-in-law of Mr. Barnum. When the coalition came to power in 2015,
water bill 100%, right?
No, the water bill is up. No, what you have to pay, you got to pay for. But listen to this number. Listen to these numbers. Coalition in power, water coverage in Guyana, 50%. Today, 96%. First time in the history of the country. The other side now promises, we can take it to 100. But you look at those tremendous improvements, you have to give credit where credit is due.
But the quality,
you have to pay for water. In the U.S., I think what it's going to do, you have to pay for some of these services, It's not free. I know.
Another thing I
want to mention one thing about sugar, though, because you like to go on this sugar. This sugar, it's a bottomless pit. It's dying. I don't know why we're so caught up with this sugar thing.
Okay.
A simple example is this. A simple example for sugar is this.
I'll tell you why.
The industry cannot, let's say you need $30, right? $30 of revenue.
Hold on.
It can't even provide money for its own capital expenditure.
Self-sustainable.
No.
$40 an ounce cost and $13 in.
To you in a second.
Okay.
Brian, hold.
Yeah. $40 cost, $13
You cannot
revenue.
look at sugar from the perspective of selling price of sugar.
Okay.
What does sugar mean in Guyana? Look, the whole DNI, the whole drainage and irrigation of Demerara and Berbice was undertaken by Soco. The government, not this one, not the past one, ever give Soco a cent remittance or ever allocated funds that were part of the expenditures of Soco to say, okay, this was for maintenance of the country. That conservancy we have at the back there, that keeps Georgetown dry, right? All of those. So that's one. Housing, roads, water, all the 90-something% you talk about was all of that still under the SLWF. Most of it, a lot of it.
Inherited from the colonials, though.
But hold on. But Charles, I want to come to you with a different angle. The PPP, the PNC, anybody is going to talk that they want to build roads, they want to do this, they want to do that. Mahadeo, I don't view roads and infrastructure and things like social security as a political thing. Any government has to build road. Any government must provide cheap and good electricity and must provide a working wage. If you take out wage, you take out roads and capital works and all of that from all of the manifestos, little is left. Charles?
And Yoga, I was listening to my good friends. They're very knowledgeable in what they're saying. But the thing is, a government make promises, as you said, through the manifesto. Promise, if I promise you that I will give you $1,000, that is binding in a court of law. It's a promissory note, even though I do not sign it. Once there is a witness to that, I offer you to give you $1,000, that's a promise to pay you. The court will uphold it. The thing about manifestos is that around the world, not Guyana alone, political parties make promises to the electorate at large. Say, if you vote me into office, I will do these things. Now, when you're in opposition, it's difficult to know exactly the state of the economy, because only the government really know the true nature of the economy, what's happening. So when APNU in 2015, APNU AFC made all these promises, they did not have the knowledge and the benefit of knowing the actual numbers in government. When they get into office, they see a different picture. But some of the things that they promised, like the constitutional reform, that was in the first 100 days, that would have been established. They did it. Nigel Hughes went around the country, they did a report, submitted to the Prime Minister, and I think right now it's getting cobweb in the Prime Minister's office. The thing is, when we make promises, we cannot take it to court to enforce it in a political environment, but the electorate will decide every 5 years if you have kept your promise. And that's what we're talking about today. And the thing is this, I know we're here to discuss APNU Manifesto, but what is important for the country is for the country to work together. And sugar, we talk about sugar. I don't agree with Brian. Yes, sugar, the price of sugar in Guyana is high because the administrative cost in Soco is top heavy. If we make each of our estate a profit center, immediately that will take away all this direct overhead costs that they have, this heavy overhead cost. And each factory will produce sugar for far less than 40 cents. They will produce sugar for about 20 cents, maybe 25 cents. I don't have the exact numbers. I know SACE has done a lot of work on this. But the thing is, I know that if we make every estate a profit center, they will make profit. Then they sell their sugar to an entity that will market the sugar. We built in Enmore a processing plant. It's not used. If we go value added, raw product, look at Singapore. We can't keep talking about Guyana development without looking at countries around the world. Singapore has no natural resource, yet they're one of the most productive nations in the world, because in Singapore they have deep harbor, they have value added product, and they can sell it back. So I'm selling you the raw product, you are selling me back the finished product. And I'm buying it at 10 times the price. And that is what Manifesto should be all about, is that let us focus on economic development and let us put in plain how we're going to get those things achieved. And we're not seeing that.
Well,
and thank you for that. And Brian, I'm just gonna give you one little tidbit of information. More than a decade ago, yours truly was the author. I was probably about a decade and a half ago. I was probably one of the only financial modelists around.
Okay.
And so I was the one that did the first financial model for Skeleton 2, and it was going to be damn profitable. Let's move on from sugar, oil. The next big thing.
I want to add one more thing about sugar before we move on.
Okay.
One more thing. My colleague over here, Professor Sugrim mentioned Singapore. As a man as a globalist, I know somewhat about Singapore. I can tell you one thing about Singapore. It has one of the highest per capita PhD in science and engineering in the world, higher than the US, higher than most developed countries. So it is not a simple thing of what they're doing.
Yeah, but Brian,
no, I'm just telling you why.
They invested in education.
I'm coming to make that point.
The world, they invested in
I'm coming to make that point. The thing to grow a country are rule of law, investment in education, infrastructure. Those are the things that we need. I want to wave it into sugar though. I want to wave it into sugar, because if we keep if we keep on sugar, we will never get there. Because let me give an example. If you look in Guyana now, we have a lot of people from Trinidad in the country now, from Venezuela, from Cuba. Whenever you have government-run businesses, the end results is corruption and failed entities. Trinidad, that's the point. Trinidad used to produce
sugar, Brian.
49.
Reduce the cost of production.
49,000 barrels of oil a day, and they have 5,000 workers doing it. I mean, you cannot have government entities doing those things.
Listen,
period.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah. Government needs to get out of business, because it's really messing up
if you don't mind,
the entire country. The same government hold on to the chronicle,
oil and the fertilizer go elsewhere.
So I think we should
cut down on corruption.
Cut
down that will help with the cost.
We got to rationalize sugar.
And diversify.
You got to change that sugar structure. So that's the point I want to make.
I think it has a place in the economy. It has a place in the economy, but you got to cut the cost, bring the cost down.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that my friend forgot to mention, in Singapore, meritocracy is key. Not party hacks and party loyalists. And both the PPP and the PNC, they're guilty of putting all the top position to square pegs, as my friend said, for people who knows nothing about what they're doing. How can you develop a country like that? Or if Guyana get back to, take 10% of Singapore, 10%. I know my friend mentioned they have a lot of PhD there. They invest a lot in education. But if meritocracy works in Guyana, we will go off like a jet in record time.
But we gotta educate the people.
That's why all of us are out there.
Gentlemen,
We gotta educate the
Get
people.
on the list.
let's
On the list of electors, you should have the people with the skills.
You gotta get skills.
Gentlemen,
Yeah.
That's
let's
what's
go
good.
on to the manifesto,
Yeah.
2020 APNU AFC manifesto proper in terms of one of the biggest thing that Guyana has, ask any man, woman and child, is oil. How much percentage of this manifesto is spent on oil? What 0% is talking about renegotiating contracts? Zero.
You want me to go first? I can go first.
Yeah.
Go on.
Now, the best structure in terms of given the previous administration and the current administration, the way how the oil contract should be done, it should not be done by any individual party. It should be done on a national scale, and that would resolve many of the issues. If it's done on a nationalistic basis, at least the other party wouldn't come and say, oh, we don't want to change it.
party
Or,
suspicious
I mean,
of
it started with the PPP. They have one thing, then the other side came and said, oh, we made it better. Then the other side and said, oh, we made it better. It should be done with a national consensus,
But is
and
there-
we agree
is
this is
there
what we
national-
want,
There where the National Assembly
so
comes
that
in,
there
a
isn't
bill
going
should
to be any
passed.
bickering and say, oh, we have one and you have two, and you know, I mean, that is how, if we get that structure, it would resolve many of those issues with the oil contract. It's got to be nationalistic.
I don't disagree, but you know what? We're going to go on a commercial break, but action speaks louder than words. If you look at the numbers or the persons who were appointed to they recently appointed, how much? 44 state boards and appointed people. All are party loyalists. So if as a government, you forget I don't want to hear what the PPP did. I want to see what you are doing. How you are manning up to what has to be done. And if you can't man up to what has to be done, where are we left? You came into power because people didn't want to hear about what the PPP did. Right? So to continue talking about comparative, let's take a commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about oil, but I want to talk about a little thing I found in the manifesto that says, continue the empowerment of Integrity Commission, and ask you if all the ministers have filed with the Integrity Commission. Let's take a commercial break.
Looking for an embroidery service or advertising services? Look no further than Inspire Incorporated. Get your very own personalized items that include rubber stamps, ID cards, mouse pads, diaries, polos, office wear, and so much more. Create your own logo or messages on any substract. It's very quick and efficient. Call Inspire Incorporated today at 222-2042 or visit at 62 Area Q, Turkine, Guyana. Times are changing. There are more airlines operating to Guyana. Travelspan GT offices in Guyana have very low fares. Fares have never been so low from Guyana to New York. Choose from Caribbean Airlines, American Airlines, and others. Call Travelspan GT for low fares and your choice of airline. From Guyana to New York, fares start from $278. And from Guyana to Toronto, fares start from $354. And from Guyana to Trinidad, fares start from $174. Call Travelspan GT for any destinations. In addition to low fares, Travelspan GT has cruises, hotels, and tour packages to Europe, Dubai, India, Dominican Republic, and many more. Call our Georgetown office at 227-1701 or Rose Hall at 337-4287 or New Amsterdam at 333-6230. Travelspan also has offices in New York, Trinidad, and Guyana. Again, call 227-1701. Travel plans, call Travelspan.
Thank you, and we're back, and I want to hand over to the gentleman for us to talk a little bit about the Integrity Commission, which is an extremely important independent body. It's a body that is set up by the National Assembly that does not report to the president or to any political party, or not supposed to. However, Brian and Cleveland, I found a nice little part here in the manifesto that I'm sure, it deserves some kudos. Government plans to ensure 20% allocation of government purchases to small businesses to enhance the impact of public spending. Now, the accountability aside from, we can be negative if you want, but look at the positive. Accountability aside for this is something good. It's an initiative to ensure that small businesses are allocated national spending. And also, they then went and I believe put their foot in the mouth with public sector transparency. Brian and Cleveland, the government of Guyana, current government of Guyana, cannot use the word transparency in public sector with any decorum of shamelessness. Exactly. It has to hide its face when it uses these words, honesty and integrity on the campaign. I mean, integrity commission have not been complied with. Contracts are handed out rather than tendered for. There are so many projects, and you can start with Durban Park and end up with the drug bond. They're all there. Again, my point is nobody's owning up to it. So let's talk a little bit about public sector transparency that is promised in this manifesto and start with the Integrity Commission. Brian.
Okay. Now, I've read some of the submissions concerning the Integrity Commission, and it's indeed a wonderful thing to have the Integrity Commission, but there are very technical issues relating to the Integrity Commission. Like, for example, I think I saw Mr. Williams saying that people are highlighting that he didn't do whatever. He says he's in compliance, but they're technically, they're still working on a number of issues. But the Integrity Commission alone will not solve some of the corruption problems in the country. I mean, I have like a personal example which I can relate to us, right? You know, I work in finance. I did commodities trading and some of those things, you know. One of our problematic public industries, you know, Guyana Power and Light, you know, they buy fuel oil at $80, $85 a barrel. I who work in commodities say, you know what, there's a way how that can be sold to them at $50, $55 a barrel. I've tried so many times, and they will say, okay, they will try it, but then they will put a number of roadblocks in front of you. So when you talk about the Integrity Commission and corruption, many of the things that are happening because of the built-in structures that the government inherited, they don't have a clue of some of the things that are happening. So my point is, the Integrity Commission alone will not solve many of the corruption problems. For it to be solved, we have to change many of the management structures of many of the corporations and many of the entities.
But the rule
wholesale.
of law, I mean, observing the rule of
wholesale.
law, commissions alone, sorry,
wholesale.
Brian, but yeah, you can put things down on paper, but you have to have the will.
That's not going to solve it.
Have the will to enforce these things.
I don't know if the president knows it, if the minister of finance knows about some of the things these guys are doing.
You are so right. And Charles, I want to come to you with this. A sitting government that is appointing members of state boards, it's indicative of how much respect you have for this country or scant respect you have by the people or the cronies that you may be appointing or not. I mean, I'm not judging those people they appointed, but isn't it indicative of the pulse for their pulse with regards to the nation?
And that's the problem we have in Guyana. The thing is, I mean, a decent government, knowing election is 3 weeks away, you cannot appoint board. Here in the US, for instance, the last election, when there was a vacancy in the Supreme Court, I know it was the Republican who controlled the Senate, and they told President Obama that we will not appoint a judge to the Supreme Court until the next election, which is, I think, was unfair to President Obama. In Guyana, you have an election coming up in a month's time when they appoint these boards, and you're appointing a board for 2 years. I mean, there's no decency in that, and that's the problem we have in Guyana. The thing is, when the APNU was in opposition, they complained bitterly about the PVP with the television station. Now it's the reverse. You're in government, and you're doing exactly what you accuse the PVP of doing. In Guyana, we can never go forward because all we are doing is say, oh, if we do it, you know, we're saying, oh, the PVP did it. If the PB did, you know what? The PNC did it. And in that kind of context, Guyana is doomed to be down the bottom as long as this kind of situation continue to exist.
Well,
and only the people, the electorate, can change that. And if, like I was telling my friends in the break, manifestos are propaganda documents basically. They just say things, but what is implemented, it's sometimes totally different.
Well,
Cleveland.
yes, my comment more on the political side. Like I said earlier, there has to be a will by every government to implement, let's say, some of the things that go back to the manifesto, or any program for that matter. And coming to like those radio things that you mentioned, with the current economic situation, I would say a number of agents, private sector jobs are going to be created. And what I would want to call the alignment of politics and race and the distribution of patronage as it is, based on political parties, I would think would be minimized. So because people will be able to find jobs apart from government or aside from government influence, which would give people a better opportunity, like in most countries we are talking about, like Singapore and all those places. You can have public-private partnerships, private sector jobs, and people don't have to rely completely or entirely on government to create employment. So
Correct.
the interference would be
And
less
it should be incentivized.
Incentivized.
It should
exactly.
be incentivized.
Incent-
Yeah.
In fact,
So Brian, just before I allow you, so a couple of other things that I want to quickly mention. Rightfully so, like the establishment of solar farms in hinterland capital towns, to bring down the cost of electricity, build roads, and also I mentioned earlier about the oil. I must give cognizance to this point that they will continue to review EPA regulations to strengthen the protection of the environment and to develop an oil spill contingency plan. The government is talking about tax reform and tax reform commission. Now, this is only after oil boom is there, right? But in the meanwhile, the Guyanese people have had to really bear the brunt of all the fancy perks and all the fancy salaries of everything that the government has foisted upon them. I mean, look, Godfrey Sasha used to be a very good friend, work colleague of mine, and I have a lot of respect for him. But I certainly believe that GRA is one of the most politically directed entities there is. And if you look at the cost of running GRA upon the tax holders, where are we heading?
Well, I want to make a brief comment on that, on political side. GRA over the years, I mean, they've been doing better now in terms of revenue collection.
by far.
By far. Accountability as well in
that's
terms of
because the taxes
targeting
gone up.
certain sectors
That's
that people are
because the taxes
evading
gone
tax.
up.
Right, people are evading tax.
Without looking at
People
it,
are evading
increase
tax.
it, yeah.
But
No, Cleveland,
hold on, young.
Guyana, I'm not going to allow that statement.
No, people
not
are
to
evading tax.
falter.
There are a number of people who have license and don't pay a cent. They perform professionally.
Exactly.
That's what
Exactly.
I'm saying.
Take them to court.
Well, there you have to change the laws. So, but the GRA over the years was taxing the fixed income people who they know they got on books. And that's the revenue, which was about 25% only you could get back in the days. You can't get more. And they're bleeding all of us who are teachers and policemen and nurses. But there are a number of people outside of those tax brackets who you don't know what the farmers make. You don't know the car dealers, how much they trade. A number of people who sell currency, do you know how much they make and how much they should declare?
But
so these are some of the things that are coming back now, or should be coming, I would say, under the scope of taxation.
But here's the counter.
Well, let me mention the gold that has been produced. You don't even have a full declaration to know how much.
Good. And here is the counter. Here's the counter to you when you talk about the farmers. Here is the counter to you when you talk about the farmers.
Okay.
So, you tax the farmers. You do this to the small farmers or all the smaller business people. But what happens? Ultimately, the industry goes right down because they were already operating at borderline. Here's one. Kudos again, a good statement or good statements have been made in the manifesto with regards to infrastructure. There is good plans for development of roads and I noticed, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, There is a line here that says construction of transport infrastructure, including road, rail, and ferries. But I didn't see the rail repeated anywhere else. There are some good things here. I know I'm rushing you guys along. But to Professor Charles Sugrim, my brother professor, to his point earlier, manifestos are promises. Brian and Cleveland, after the commercial break, I would like you to tell us what we, the people, can do to hold the next government accountable for their promises. Let's take a break.
Sure.
After one time is another time. Now Guyana has choices. Choose between American Airlines, Caribbean Airlines, or JetBlue with non-stop and direct flights to Guyana. Check out these low fares. From New York to Guyana, fares start from $209 one-way, $462 round-trip. From Miami to Guyana, from $205 one-way, $448 round-trip. From Orlando to Guyana, from $271 one-way, $591 round-trip. From Atlanta to Guyana, from $271 one-way, $591 round-trip. From Houston to Guyana, from $372 one-way and $751 round-trip. From Toronto to Guyana, $272 one-way and $486 round-trip. These are non-stop and direct flights with all taxes included. Call Travelspan and choose your airline with low fares. Call Travelspan now. In USA, call 718-845-0437. In Canada, call 647-557-6200. That's USA, call 718-845-0437. And in Canada, call 647-557-6200. Or book online at travelspan.com. Travelspan, serving the community for over 26 years. January marks 1 year since Globespan 24x7 embarked on this initiative to offer a platform that brings in all sides, all points of view, and all concerns. Viewers in Guyana and across the world are participating in discussions that are bringing to light issues relating to social, economic, and political matters that have been plaguing our nation. Globespan's platform offers Guyanese to express their concerns and discuss solutions in the political realm, thereby addressing the polarized situation. Discussions also include social ills, such as alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicides that have been plaguing the people. The platform also mitigates the brain drain by having speakers that live in Guyana and across the world participate in these discussions. This concept will avail a broader view for the benefit of all Guyanese, so Globespan needs your support to offset the expenses. Kindly contribute by clicking the link in the description to help support these programs.
Thank you, and we are back live. Brian and Cleveland, Charles, sorry I'm not including you.
No, that's fine. These two gentlemen are...
Just jump in anytime, man.
But
we know Charles very well, man.
Yeah, Brian and Cleveland.
Here
is one. Joel has reminded us, Joel Bhagwandi, an economist, has reminded us that he is, having examined the development strategies that were in place. What he could say is, from an economist perspective, is that this current government, it basically continued. If you recall, Charles, you might remember this. You remember when the PPP came in office, everybody accused the PPP that it was continuing Desmond Hoyt's ERP.
Yeah.
And that was the basis. So it is widely believed, Brian and Cleveland, that any success of the APNU AFC government was because it continued the policies or continued the initiatives of the PPP who demitted office, like the roads, the airports, all the bragging things, all the bragging songs presently were projects probably initiated. This is what the opposition is saying. Now, coming back to the entire thing about the manifesto, there are two things there that is really irksome. Continue to strengthen the prosecutorial capacity of Soco and Sarah. They should be disbanded. They're an absolute waste of the taxpayers' money. Nothing, zilch, nada to show for spending billions of dollars over 4 years. For what? And what are we continuing there? For a political witch hunt? To handcuff people, former ministers, and parade them in front of the country and then do nothing? Over to you, gentlemen.
I don't think that's absolute truth, because we can't discredit that fraud was taking place. A number of agencies
in Soco, there was fraud.
Well, yes, after the fact, because they were pursuing fraud. That was after the fact.
You don't know how long the fraud was ongoing.
No, so it was created afterwards. I'm saying after the fact.
No, within Soco there is fraud.
Yes, I'm saying Soco was created after the fact to investigate fraud. So their fraud, if it does exist, is after the fraud they were chasing after.
No. Within Soco themselves, they had fraud. That is recent.
But
it was created because they're looking after prior fraud.
I don't quite.
So
yes,
they got caught up in the fraud.
Because
it was created to look at fraud.
To look at fraud, yeah.
There was fraud there. It's created to look at fraud.
And
the
they
thing
became
is,
fraudulent.
it comes back to what we call institutional will. That's one. And secondly, the rule of law. Whether we have parliaments that pass the laws to support some of these institutions. Now, we are behind time when it comes to, when I say behind time, as we're getting there as a third world country. We want to deal with accountability, but we don't have institutional readiness to deal with some of these things. By the time you, like you say in Guyana, by the time you close the door, the horse out the paddock already.
Yeah. But Cleveland, you're admitting a humongous mistake. Listen,
yeah, go ahead.
I agree with you. Mm-hmm. You are saying that institutional will,
yes,
political will. But here is what, the exercising of political power, continued exercising of political power doesn't show the will. Example, the appointment of those boards. It doesn't show will. If you don't have will 12 days before elections, how can we hope you will have such will after the elections? And guess what? Not just the will. Recently, we have heard talks about Marriott, another Marriott's hotel being built on a Hilton. Where is the feasibility that the same government people broke police barriers and did everything, and we applauded them for it? Where is the feasibility study? It is now time that unless those feasibility studies are made public, that we go and we stand up and stop any of these projects from happening. Tell me.
Right.
No, well, I would strongly disagree with the points you're making. Government of the day, the obligation of the government of the day is to grow the economy and have law and order and ensure that the citizens enjoy a relatively decent life.
Safety.
Even though, including safety, even though we have elections coming on, there's no need for the government to have feasibility studies for those projects. Those are privately funded projects. Private sector should be allowed to continue with their projects.
Listen to yourself.
No, that's what I'm saying. Feasibility is if you're going to have a government
public sector investment. But we don't. I don't know if they did
no, these are different. These are private sector investment, and in fact, it shows you something that is. As an economist, that you ought to know.
Open the market. Yeah.
It shows that there's a high level of confidence in the country in terms of growth, because it's investment by
risk, taking risk,
investment by Hilton, Marriott, banks. You know, I mean, it shows.
To invest, you have to take risk, and so they have confidence in the economy.
Are they going to get tax breaks? Which is it is our right. That is part of the public partnership. We are going to give them huge tax breaks. Therefore, it is our interest.
I don't know the terms, because I don't see.
You may have a point, but we don't know the contracts that they've signed.
If we're going to get 200, if we're going to get 500 or 600 extra jobs, you know, one of the main things in Guyana is jobs to the people. You know, if those two projects will bring 5,000 jobs. Well,
I want to make a political point there. I hope the contractors.
If you want to stop everything, how will a country grow?
Marriott, Brian, let me jump in on a political point.
Technically, you should not have anything done before an election.
This Marriott, I would hope.
It should not stop. I mean, private investment will stop because of election. I could understand large government projects, but private investment, it depends on the investor. If he's going to make money, he's going to...
The point I want to make here, the last Marriott...
Guyana too long ago to know, or to not know, or not remember, that in Guyana, 6 months before an election, everything stops.
No, if you look around at all the successful countries, I mean, even the US, you know, private investment.
You gotta get private,
going
yeah.
all the time.
But I would hope,
Countries
the point I want to make, I would hope that this Marriott is built with some local people as laborers and technicians. Because the last one, I understand, were only Chinese and they were not employing locals. So hopefully these contracts are different and they're more transparent.
You know, I like Brian's passion with this Marriott issue. The thing is this: in the past government, when they were building Marriott, it was APNU OAFC who was jumping and saying, "You're wasting government funds. You're wasting." Now the Marriott is one of the most profitable hotels in Guyana. Because of that, the Marriott organization will now build another one, and then Hilton is coming in to build someone here. So the thing is, yes, and the point is well taken. Feasibility study, I mean, as you rightly mentioned, our part, the government part, the national part is the tax break that they will get, and they will get huge tax break. That's why they will come in anyway in the first place. But one thing I want to talk about, Yogi, if you don't mind, is Soco. You're saying that they should be disbanded, and I'm respectfully saying no.
Me too.
What I'm saying is that it should be made professional, not political. So they investigate all corrupt matters, whether you're in the government or you're not in the government. If you go after the national treasure, you should be charged and put before the court and sent to freaking Mazaruni and stay there for a long time. That is what should happen.
And that's what I was talking about when you said corruption in Soco, but the corruption was before Soco.
The appointment of the head of those organizations is dependent on a parliamentary subcommittee recommendation. At the end of the day, no matter how you turn it and twist it, it is political. You know, now, and the other thing, Brian, to your point,
I want to make one subtle distinction.
Just now. You'll bring the two together, but to your point earlier, I mean, you guys sit in, you guys are fortunate to maybe be in part of the more developed world. But I tell you what, I don't know that there is any contract that the U.S. government would enter into that is not subject to hearings at the Senate, open hearings at the Senate, or open hearings in the House, or anywhere like that. Things.
Kentucky got a coal plant right now. I don't think it went through anything.
Especially things that affect the public and the public purse becomes part of public debate.
No, but let's go back to the Marriott issue. The Marriott issue in the previous government was a government-owned and run operation. The Marriott here is a completely
financed by NISIL.
Private.
That one was NISIL, I think.
Money, yeah. The previous one was using taxpayers' money, which is a complete. I don't believe in government-run projects. I can tell you. I mean, that's my philosophy. The previous one was a government-run and owned. Even though it's profitable, I don't agree. I think it should be sold. You know.
But Cleveland, you know that it's the same NISIL that is now involved in this one, right?
They are involved. I don't know with this one. I didn't know the new one. Yeah,
this allocation of land.
But they had a lot of questions.
Not the same NISIL. The APNU's NISIL is now involved.
Okay.
Yeah, but
but the level of corruption. I mean, because there was so much about what was done with NISIL money in the last government. Because you hear there were parallel financial institutions in NISIL, not going to the consolidated fund.
Yes, and that is something that we'll have to assess on another platform because that continues.
So the question of accountability, financial accountability, should always be something important to any government. Because
so Cleveland, I want to ask you this. It's a pointed question to the two of you, and Charles will come in, of course. There's a sticking point in this manifesto.
Okay.
It's just a carrot dangled there. And I find it a sad statement of admission of failure. It says, continue the liberalization of telecommunications sector. It doesn't say conclude.
Well,
it says continue.
It has to be.
So it means they started liberalization. So you're going to continue.
It's never going to be final.
The PPP started in Cleveland.
No, okay.
All right.
Okay.
But then both parties are seeing the need to do that. But the rate at which it's being, it's probably going is too slow. But the objective is to get it reformed. And so both parties at least they see a common ground with that.
No, but you talk to any government minister, they don't know when liberalization will be done, when this thing will be done. You know, and what is done is, look, communication power are critical to any government's advancement.
Of course, I agree. Especially with you call it the fiber optic cables that are going on now, and so much industry and ministries are dependent on the work program to be done online. So I mean, it's important. But you know what? Don't forget that attempts were made to do this by the last president before Ramatar's son. Yeah. And that was a total failure. That was a collapse.
Yeah,
massive collapse and failure.
This is why the electorate handed you the power.
Well, like I said, the manifesto has hopes.
Yeah,
it's kind of hopeful. But of course, you have a right to point out where the optimism is not that glaring or bright. You have a right to point and should be debated, right? No, but we here can't answer for all of the. We're not a part of the plan. We are having a what you call like a 5-minute look into something that took probably 6 months to generate. Without the data, we don't have the knowledge and the data to back up some of these things. But we can only give broad speculation.
Good. Yeah, well, you know what? And we're all of a sudden we have spent an entire hour discussing this thing, and we haven't even touched it in any proper respectful ways. Yeah. What I can say to everyone, and I think you gentlemen will agree with me. Look, all the parties, for whatever it's worth, new parties, the larger parties, they have put together a lot of manpower, strategic thinking, and professionalism in developing what they believe will be a strategic paper that argues for their electability. It is up to this population. And I'm calling on our brothers and sisters out there in the diaspora and at home, those who are voting. It is up to you. Vote not so much with emotions, but with intellect. Go through these manifestos, see who you think can deliver the best for Guyana. And the best for Guyana means the best for your sons and daughters, our sons and daughters. And that's the person that I believe should earn my vote. Cleveland, final comment.
I think it's a great opportunity for Guyana at this juncture to re-elect this current APNU AFC government, because the manifesto itself, like I said, is hopeful. And I have a feeling that with local democracy in place right now, as we see the devolution of that into new towns, the infrastructure that is in place, like communication equipment, roads, and to mention oil, the revenue that will be coming from oil. A lot of these programs, give them a fair opportunity, should be implemented to the benefit of all. And I think this is what everyone is looking forward to, full participation in a multicultural society like we have, full participation and the benefit of all involved, including young and old. So I have
Thank you. I'm gonna leave the independent man for the last comment. Brian, open to you for your final comment.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. And like my brother Cleveland, I believe the APNU the country is at a crossroad, and I think at this juncture, they're the better party that is able to move the country forward. And when we look at things like that are missing from the other side, the previous government, we need things like internal democracy. Like if the people were a more democratic party, they were more party.
You sure you want to go there?
No.
You're sure you want to go there? Where is the accord?
No, I have to go there. Why I have to go there is because we have something called game theory kind of setup. If one side is going to behave one way, it forces the other side to behave in a particular way. So we need to solve some of those democratic issues, right? Because if they're not solved, we be like this for a long time. So, right? And it's going to be hard to implement many of the programs that we have in place, because instead of working together, we'll be fighting and pushing and jostling for power, right? So it's a kind of a funny theoretical point, but so I have to make it, because we need to work together, and it's difficult to work together when you have a one man just doing whatever he wants to do, and then the other side, we just got to defend and try to deflect, so we need to work together. So with those two dynamic structures, it is very difficult. So at this juncture,
we live and peacefully coexist every year until elections.
More democracy. They give us local government elections. They give us a number of things.
We live peacefully and coexist until elections.
They're not perfect,
but
I would
artificial.
go with them at this juncture.
So thank you for that. And I must say that, the time will tell. Charles, your final comments.
I'm so pleased. Your closing statement there, Jörg, as well, that you're asking the electorate to read the documents presented to them and make an informed decision. That would be in a normal society. We are not. The thing is, 90, maybe 92% of our population vote along racial lines. And that's our big problem. I don't think people would read any manifesto. They might not. The 7 or 8% independent Guyanese will read the manifesto, and then they will determine who might be the best party for them to take in the next 5 years.
The numbers are somewhat wrong because the Amerindians.
Well, no, okay.
Bring it down a little bit.
Okay, so 88%. Some Amerindians already will vote PNC and some will vote PEP, and that's without knowing. But the thing is, unless the government of the day can see everyone as Guyanese, and I keep saying this Guyanese thing because we see ourselves as African and Indian and all these, pro-Guyanese before we are Guyanese. And unless we see each other, I mean, as individuals, we sing such beautiful songs in our republic, it makes you cringe when you listen to these songs and you say, this is so great for our country that, that unity should prevail. And we sing it so lustily and so beautifully. And as soon as the song is over, we gone back to our old ways. And that is it's my yearn, it's my great hope and belief that whoever wins the next election will put aside this patronage to the party loyalist, and bring people from all Guyana. Everyone, Guyana belong to all Guyanese, not to the party. The party is the vehicle to take us there. I'm appealing to the PPP and to APNU OFC, whoever win the election, please treat Guyanese as Guyanese together, not you're African, you're Indian, you're a PNC supporter, you're a PP supporter. We vote who we want to. That's our fundamental right. The sad news is that we vote along racial lines. Okay, the election is over. Let us work together. Whoever you vote for, please put our hand to the plow and let us take Guyana forward. Guyana have great hope, but unless our politicians can have real vision
for inclusion
and work to develop our country together, Yog, all this nice hope you talk about and my learned friends here talk about will all go to waste because it will go back to, polarized politics, which is sad for
Correct.
Guyana.
And I don't disagree with you at all. And to Anil Ramnath, who was asked which of the two major political parties would have had a better manifesto, we are certainly hoping upon receipt of the PPPC's manifesto soon that we will have, if not one of these show, a special show to discuss that. And maybe I'll invite our colleagues just here to discuss the PPP's manifesto.
Okay,
I was about to ask that question.
Comparative politics, we were about to ask that question. One is here, where is the other? Is there a leap from iFlock to here?
We are awaiting that one.
Okay, man.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to have you here tonight. And to the viewers out there, remember my constant preaching every week: vote, but don't hate.
Exactly.
We got to live together. We got to work together regardless of what the politicians do. Remember, you are paying their salaries. You are running this country, not the politicians. God bless you all. Have a wonderful night, viewers.
They should take a picture of me and Charles, man.
Happy President Day to all the people out there.
Everybody.
Thank you. Same to you.
Charles, they got to work like
bye-bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.